Hello guys, in this video I would like to introduce you the very basic of Python programming language in regards to web scraping. So without further ado, let's actually start writing some code. So the very first thing you can do in Python, of course, you can print strings, and that's the very first kind of exercise that is probably available in every tutorial over there in the internet. So also you can evaluate the expressions. So if you type 2 plus 2, etc., so here you get 4, and also you can evaluate some more complicated expressions like this, also having the result you need. And if by default the Python string is finished with the new line character, but in case if you do want to avoid that sort of behavior, you can simply specify and equals to nothing, and in that case there would be nothing to there wouldn't be any new line. Also you can specify whatever custom character you like, so this sort of stuff. Another thing to consider is the separator. So if you just want to print some sort of a different object types like this, so by default it's separated with the space, but if you want to change that sort of behavior, you can specify the separator like this, say equals to colon, and you'll suddenly get the separator of colon. So now let's cover the very basic variables in Python. So first one is number, and remember that Python is dynamically typed language, which means that it recognizes the type of the data you assign to the variable automatically. So say some number here, and if you just print this number, of course we have the value. And also there is a function called type, which is the standard Python function that allows you to say what to return the type of the particular variable. The next thing to consider would be a string, which will be let's make it equal to hello. So the type of string respectively would be this class string. So you can also print strings like this, and also you can use some string formatting. So say you want to say some text, and then you specify the string parameter, and then using this percentage sign and string like this, and also you can specify the number as well. And if in C you need to specify the number, definitely should have been the decimal type. In Python you can still use the string specifier here, so that's kind of it. And so let's go basically further on. So we also can have what is known as list. Well, this is the keyword because it's kind of the list standard function. So well, let's call the variable list like this. So you can use whatever characters to name Python variables. So to create a new list, we need to enclose it in the square brackets, and here it can be some numbers. Also there might be some strings inside. Let's make it string like this, and also let's make a string like this. Okay, let's print our list. So end of line. Oh, that's because I forgot to put this. Okay, quote there. So also you can make a list of lists. So list2 equals, so here we can specify the very first list, and here again some sort of numbers and some strings. And if I just print the list2, okay, list2 is not defined. Okay, now now it is defined. So here we have the first element is the list, etc., etc. So in order to see what's going on at the particular index of the given list, we need to specify the index within the square brackets like this. So we can say simply the very first element is this one list. So if we want to make this recursively, say 0, 1, 2, 3. So if we just print 3, we'll see the world here. So here we see the world. This sort of index. Another option here to consider is that basically the Python string is also, well, in some sort of a term, is considered to be a list of characters. But let me just show you what I mean by saying that. So if we just print the entire string like this, in that case we'll see the entire string, but we can specify the character to start from. So if, say, here I would specify start from character of index 1, so this is the index of 0 and this would be the index of 1, so I should have get the hello world now instead of hello world. And also we can specify the end index, so let's have it at 5 here. So we have the only 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here we slice the string basically. And if we want to count from the back of the string, we can specify it with a minus here. So say -1 would it be world, -2 would it be world, etc., etc. Another very important part, data type regarding web scraping is what is known as Python dictionary. So let's create the dictionary, and it's defined using this curly braces, and the dictionary contains the keys and the values. So let's say the key 1 would be equal to some number, and comma then key to, well, let's call this number basically a number, and say string would be equal to hello, and say list would be equal to 1, 2, and 3, like this. So if we just print the dictionary like this, we'll see, okay, so just forgot the comma here, dictionary like this, we see our dictionary. If we want to print this a little bit, we can import what is known as JSON standard Python library. So by the way, if you want to import something Python, you can simply say import and then the module name. So JSON is a standard Python module, that's why you can use it pretty straightforward like this. If you want to prettify the dictionary, you can simply say JSON dot dumps, and the first element here, the first parameter would be the dictionary itself, and the second parameter you can specify the indentation in spaces. So JSON, so here you see exactly the same dictionary, but in a more pretty printed way. So now I would like to show you one more interesting operator here. So we're coming to the operators in a moment. So just say print hello in string. This would return as the boolean value, sorry, string like this. So it returns as true because hello is present in the string like this, in the hello world string. And if we say just something like this, in that case it would return as the false because it's not present in the string there. So that's kind of it. So if we want to say now let's go to the conditional. So the very first conditional, and basically the most important one, is actually the if. So we can say if hello in string in this case. And remember that in Python you need to keep track of what is known as indentations. The most editors do this automatically, but by the indentation I mean that here we have the four spaces. So if you just start the next line just without doing that in sort of indentation, in that case it would give us an error that expected in indented blocks. So always make sure that indentations are either spaces or tabs. Well, regarding the PEP8, PP8s, probably that's the name of the standard, not sure. You should have used spaces, but using tabs is also allowed. So you need to specify that indentation in order to have the correct syntax. So this is important regarding the syntax in Python. Okay, so after defining the condition, so here is the operator and here is the condition part. So you can basically enclose the condition within the parenthesis. You'll get exactly the same results, but it's not essentially needed if you don't have a complicated expressions there. So also at the end of the conditional, you should have put this this colon in order. Well, that's the syntax of the conditionals as well as loops. So also you can evaluate simple expressions like 1 equals to 1, so it would definitely always return you true. If 1 equals to true, it won't. You can compare the variables, so if number is greater than 2, then it fires. If it's not, nothing happens. So also you can specify else print else. Here we could leave this as if true. So sorry. So here the condition is false. Here we have this else basically. So now let's go to loops, and I won't be covering while loop because it's harder to imagine when exactly it can be used during the web scraping. So we will be covering mostly the for loop. So the most common use case of the for loop is as follows. So we say simply for variable, and here var is whatever variable name you pick up, so you can call this element, item, whatever, for 1, and it doesn't matter. So let's call this for item in string. So in this case, what this loop does, it loops over all the characters in the string. So if say here we'll say print item, we'll see that the loop has taken each single character here. Also, if we're looping over the list, so say some sort of, let's play the array variables. So here this value 1, value 2, value 3. Oh, let's have the number. Okay, number. So if we loop over the list, here we have respectively everything we need there. So also if we loop over the dictionary, so let me show you how exactly that can be done. So say we have our key and some value and another key 2, and well, some another value that doesn't matter. Oh, it's hello. So oops, sorry. So in order to loop over both, okay, the very first thing to consider is actually we can say print dictionary dot keys, and if we just run this, it would return us a list of all the keys. So that means that we can loop over the keys following ways. So we can say for key in dictionary dot keys, and here, and the keys in here is the function call. That's why I'm using this double parenthesis here. So here we can simply say print key and execute, we have the key number 1, key number 2. Also we can loop over the values, saying vals like this. Values, not sure. Oops. Over the values this way, so we loop over the values of the particular dictionary. And if we want to loop over both keys and values, we need to say dict.items, and here we say key and value. Here we define already 2 variables, because there is both key and the value, and here we can print key and the value respectively, like this. So here we have our keys, and so also here we can specify the separator as the colon and see it this sort of way. Okay, so another thing to consider regarding the for loops, if you want to loop traditionally over the indexes like it was done in good old plain C and in early JavaScript. So let's loop over, let me just show you that. So we can say simply for index in, and now we use the standard Python range function, which returns us an array from, and it takes 2 arguments from and to, basically, say from 0 to 10, and here just print, let's say hello. So this loop would happen 10 times, so because we just specified, so we have 10 hellos here because we specified the range from 0 to 10. Of course we can specify whatever range. In that case the number of repetitions would be accordingly calculated. Also we can specify the index itself, which would be taken the value of from 0 to from this value to this value respectively. So this is one of the techniques that can be often used. That is often used in creating web scrapers when you're not extracting per element, but per card, say, or per big element. But if you're just extracting per item, so that just to bear that in mind, this would appear later on, I believe. So okay, now let's have a look at very simple function definitions here. So in order to define the function in Python, we need to use the def keyword. So then we provide the function name here. So in this case it would be the test, and here this colon stands just the regular Python syntax, like for conditionals and loops and whatever. So the method can take no arguments at all. Well, in this case, if I just simply say print, but not print, but if I just in order to call the method, we need to use the name of that particular function here, and well, let's call it function. It would become a method if it's located within the class. So task like this, and just execute the code. So whatever is in here is now been executed. So let me actually show you this in a little bit more, in a little bit better example here. So I just specify the indentation for these guys, and I simply say def test, and just run the test one more time, but nothing to be printed here. So if I just simply say print, well, say dictionary, that the dictionary is printed because this sort of function has been invoked here. So one more little thing, okay guys, I just forgot to show you one little trick regarding the loops, so let me quickly demonstrate you that. So we can imagine that we need to loop over the list elements here. So if we will be doing this in a regular way, we will say simply for array for item in array, and say we simply want to print the array, and no, print the item, sorry, print the item. So here we have our stuff, but it usually might be useful, especially when you're writing web scrapers, to do absolutely the same logic but in a little bit more prettier way in terms of syntax. So Python allows us to use some sort of syntactic sugar that is called list comprehension. So what we can do here, we can say, well, let's call this new array equals, and list comprehension has the following definition, the following syntax definition here. So we need to say the element for element in, and in our case let's take the array like this. So in this case the new array would be the exact copy of the array. So let me just quickly demonstrate you this. So I just want to print array, and also want to print the new array. Oh, let's print the new array from the new line. Print new array. So here we have absolutely the same stuff. But say we want to filter the initial array. So here we can say if type of element is, and in our case we want to use only the strings, so we want to filter the numbers away, so we want to filter we want to have only the strings. If type of element equals to string, and string is the standard type for the string, and int respectively for the integer, and so on. So in this case we see that the new array was filtered and it contains only strings. If say this dictionary, let me just take this dictionary away and define this somewhere over here, and also I would specify the dictionary as the very last element. Let's try doing this. Okay, so here we have our dictionary, but let's imagine that okay, let's make a couple more dictionaries here. So just with some sort of different values like this. So, and let's specify the list of 2 dictionaries. So this would be dictionary 1, this one would be dictionary 2, so dic1, dictionary 2. Okay, so here we can specify if element type is equal to dictionary. So dict stands for dictionary type. If you want to specify the list, you can use the list keyword here, but in our case we need to specify the dictionary. So here we have, and the second array filtered by the dictionaries, but we can extract only some keys from this. So we may say element, say key 2, like this, key 2. In this case we just taken this sort of key values being filtered to a new array. And these are the very basic regarding data extraction during the web scraping, because when you deal with the beautiful souped objects, they are kind of well, they're not dictionaries, but they are of a type of beautiful soup for tag, but still this sort of technique is quite useful. So in case if we're dealing with the classes, we can say element dot class attribute name, in that case, and extract the class attribute name respectively. So before we proceed to web scraping specific library import, I would like to cover the very last thing that's regarding the classes. Well, this might be probably a little bit too overwhelming for you guys, but still so the very important thing regarding object-oriented programming is it serves 3 purposes: encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. And while polymorphism is a bit too complicated and probably won't really be used during the web scraping, the first 2 are quite pretty handy. So let's define the class, and the class name is usually typed from the capital letter, so from the uppercase. So let's call this my class like this. So we can define the simple class without, so if we need to pass some parameters into the class, like to the function, okay, I just forgot to say how we can send parameters to the function, but okay, I will just show you this within the classes. So we can simply, the very simple definition of class is this like, and when we specify classes, we first need to create a class instance and then to call the corresponding method. In this case, this function is treated as the method of this particular class. So we can simply say here instance equals my class and instance dot test. So okay, so it takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 is given, and now this is getting a little bit interesting. So this means that implicitly here a self instance was passed to the class, and in order to handle that, we need to specify the self instance when we define some sort of a class method. So Python is probably the only language that supports the explicit specification of a self instance within the class method. So that's kind of important. So in this case, this method doesn't take any outer arguments, but it takes the self instance, and that's needed for example, let's say create some inner attribute value here, which would be equal to, say, oh my god, sorry, inner, and here if we just if we want to print self dot inner, we'll see, okay, doesn't have attribute inner attribute, okay, inner attribute like this. So here we see that this inner was printed, and to reference the inner attribute we use the self keyword, and that's the argument that I was just kind of talking about. So okay, let's move further on. So I probably don't need this stuff anymore, so let's just try me. Okay, for some reason it prints, I'm not sure why exactly this happens, to be honest. Oh, that's because I'm calling the tests. I don't really want to call it test anymore. Okay, so let's print again self dot inner attribute. Okay, and also we can this regards not only the class methods but also the plain functions. So here we can let's call this number. So if we just run the code, it will give us an error saying that missing one positional argument, the number. So here we need to specify the element to the argument to pass to the test function. So well, again, even though it's called number, it doesn't have to be the type of the integer. It can be type of whatever of this type. So number, string, dictionary, list, whatever. There are also the data type like tuples in Python, but that's a little bit of a different story. So let's pass some sort of a number. So now it's no error. It just compiles and runs. Maybe not compiles, interprets just fine. So let's also here we can print the number like this. So we see that inner and the number that we've passed over here. So another Python specific stuff that if you have several arguments like in here, so let's print the number and the string, and here, and say hello over here. So in this case, okay, we don't probably need this inner attribute anymore. So in this case, we have in this case we use number and string. So the number is the first and the string is the second. Of course, we can switch their places, but regarding the code logic, that might have ended up as a complete disaster. So there is a little trick in Python. So that is called as, well, let me just show you. So if you just shift these guys with their places like this, then you'll see that output, okay, well, that's because I just meant, okay, hold on a sec, guys. Okay, what I just wanted to say, that you can also specify the name for every particular argument. So like this, and if you don't specify the name for the particular argument in time you're passing it, nothing, well, basically nothing happens, right? So just can do it like this, and the result is still the same. But if we say that this say this is the string, and say this is the number, in this case, okay, just did take not the very best ever way of representing things. So so we have two arguments. So first the number, and the second is a string. Okay, one more time. So this time we have the number like this. But if we specify that this would be a string, actually, so you see the error here. If we specify that this stuff is actually a number, then well, I'm not sure. Okay, I don't understand what's going on here. Okay, guys, and now let's go to the web scraping specific libraries that we would be using in this tutorial. So I'll be using two libraries, requests and beautiful soup, and in order to import them we need to say import requests, and from bs4 import beautiful soup, like this. So in order to install these libraries on your local system, if you're not running this in the cloud like I do, where pythonanywhere.com allows me to host this sort of application and make outgoing HTTP requests for my scrapers, and also it allows me also provides me the fully installed Python environment that already have requests and beautiful soups and many other useful libraries installed. So if you don't have that, you need to invoke your Linux console. If you're on Windows, that is also possible. I'm not sure how exactly. That's the reason again for using the cloud solution. But on Linux we can simply say sudo, then it may be pip3 if you have also pip for Python 2. If you have the only pip for Python 3, then you can type probably simply pip like this. But in my particular system it goes the following way. So I say sudo pip3 install, and then the name of the library. So first we need to install the requests. Well, I already have that installed, just showing you guys how that is done. So I already have it installed. And the second thing to consider is install bs4, which stands for beautiful soup 4, and it's also installed as well. And the very last thing that we will be using this tutorial is called an LXML parser. So in order to install that, you need to say pip install LXML like this. And of course I have that installed on my local system as well, but also I have this installed in this Python Anywhere cloud environment. So now in order to make an outgoing HTTP GET request, it's as simple as defining the response, the variable to store the response object. So we can simply say requests.get and then specify the URL that we're supposed to scrape the data from. So I can simply say HTTP, and it will be scraping sites quotes to scrape.com. Let me just quickly show you that, how that looks like. Quotes.toscrape.com. So So this side we will be extracting now this sort of quotes. So we can simply say http quotes.toscrape.com, and now if you just print the response itself, we see response object output. So the 200 means the status code, which means that the request was made successful. In some cases it might not be that great, and you'll need to use the custom headers and maybe custom proxies to bypass some anti-scraping measures, but that's kind of more complicated stuff, which is not the topic of this particular tutorial. So we're moving on. The very interesting part of the response is the text. So here we can see the HTML content of the file that we've taken. It's absolutely equal to, if we just say view page source code here, so what we see in this screen, that's the exact content returned to us by the request.get function. So here we have the plain string. So this is regarding the request, and now regarding the beautiful soup, that's actually the library that allows you to parse this sort of response in order to extract some useful data out of it. So now let's create a content variable which would be equal to requests, which would be equal to beautiful soup, and here the first argument to the beautiful soup function would be the response.text, and the second one is the LXML parser that I was talking about when I was covering the installation of the related packages here. So now we can print the content, and it would look like absolutely the same, well, almost the same like the response itself, but it's not a plain string anymore. So if we would have a look at the type of the content, we would see that it's type of the beautiful soup, yeah, like this. And regarding the beautiful soup, well, I've been doing web scraping for quite a bit of time, and probably the only function that I use in most of my scrapers, basically that's all you need, is the find all function. Well, basically there are two main functions, the find function and find all. Find function allows you to get the single item, and find all returns all the items of the particular type. So let me just quickly demonstrate you that. So we will be extracting the quotes, so let's create the variable quotes for that purpose, and we simply say first let's use content.find, and if we see at the quotes here, so let's have a look at this sort of text in our source code. So we just paste it. We can see that it's the tag, it's the span tag, and the class, CSS class of this particular tag is text. So what do we need to do here? So the find method takes well, it takes probably more than 2 arguments. I should look at the documentation, don't remember that by heart, but the very first element is definitely the tag name itself. So here I can simply say the span, here I can say span, and this function already would return as the very first span in the document. So let's try to find this manually first. So I just would be looking for the span tag like this. So probably, yeah, it already would be the what we actually need. So if we just simply here say print quotes, and here and execute the code, we have the entire tag in return, and also the data that we need. But that might happen that this might not be the very first span, and there might be some other spans with not containing the information we really need that much. So it's really important to specify the attribute that we're looking for. In our case, the name of the attribute is class. So here if this would be an H reference or source, if we're talking about the images or whatever, we can, so the very first, so it's the type of Python dictionary, or what you remember from the first part of this video. So it has the key and the value. So the key is always the attribute name, and the value is the value respectively. If in the case, if the value, if the in that case, when that the attribute has more than one value, then can be treated as a list. So instead of defining it with a single quotes, we can specify the list of many elements. Say if there is a class and say type 1 and type 2, but that just for you to know, guys, that's not regarding this video. But here what is enough to do is simply to define the class value. In our case, this would be the text, not the text, but the text. And if we just run this, we have absolutely the same result, but just I hope you understand what I've just said. So this is regarding the find method. And the second method, which is the most common use case, basically is called find all. And what it does, it actually returns the list of tags containing the list of span tags containing the attribute of class with a value of text, so a particular attribute with a particular value. So that's quite important to bear in mind. And now what we need here, so let's see the very first element here. So if we want to strip the tag itself, we can simply say dot text, and in this case the text of the particular HTML element would be extracted. So now all we need here is basically we need to loop over all the elements of this particular loop over all the elements of the list returned by content.findAll function, and we need to extract the text from each of them. So let's actually try to do that. So we say for quote in content find all, and here we simply say print quote dot text like this. Okay, so we got our result, but it's not really that nice way of doing things. So instead of using the for loop this sort of way, we can do something even more interesting. So remember I was telling you guys about the list comprehension. So if we just enclose our for loop within the square brackets, and here the very first keyword, so the very first thing to put here would be quote dot text like this. So this would return us this would filter the list of all the tags contained in our text, and would strip the span tags, so we would be having only the text here. So if we just say store this to the quotes variable here and simply print quotes, then we'll see that we have all the quotes, and all the quotes actually are stripped from the text. So if you just want to print this, you can do, well, it's just for testing purposes, you can actually make this plus new line like this. In this case okay, probably the new line, yeah, the new line is appended, but it doesn't, well, this print method doesn't support it, so just forget that, guys. Okay, so absolutely the same, we can extract the author name. So let's say authors equals, and now we'll use the list comprehension again, but this time we're looking for the author author.text for author in content.findAll. And in this case we're looking for, well, okay guys, just to save your time, just remember this by heart because I've been doing this so many times. So it's the small tag, the tag that is called small, and also the class is author like this. So if we just quickly print the authors, then we'll see the name of our authors. Now remember, I was talking about looping over the indexes, so this is exactly the case when this sort of technique might have been useful. So I can simply say for index in range from 0 to and now the upper limit of the length that we're looping over should be the length of this particular list. So in order to get the length of this particular list, we should use here len, and either quotes or authors, doesn't matter. The only stuff matters that these two guys should be equal regarding the length. So I'll be using the quotes here. So just before doing that, let me just quickly show you print length of quotes like this. So it's 10, and the length of authors should be 10 as well. So authors also 10. Now if we just loop over this stuff here, and let's create the item that would be the type of Python dictionary, and here the key would be named as author, and the value would be authors. And now remember that authors is the type of list, so we can reference each element using the particular index. And remember that this index is from 0 to, in our case, to 10. So if here we specify the index, the author element, the author key in each created item would be equal to the corresponding author. So the next thing to consider is absolutely the same, but regarding the quotes. So here we specify the quote and quotes and index, and that's it. So if you just now print our item here, then we see the list of our authors. Now again, if you want to print this stuff, you can use again JSON JSON.dumps, and the item is the first argument, the second argument indentation equals to 2 spaces. Now you have the same data but in a more like kind of pretty printed way here. So this is it, and the very last thing I would like to show you guys is actually how to store the extracted data to the CSV file. But before doing that, first we need to store the variable to we need to store our data to the variable. So let's create the results variable, which should be a type of Python list. And here, instead of defining an item, we can simply say results dot append, and this dictionary would be basically the argument to append to the results list. So here we can actually print our results, and our results would be the list of the stored elements. So now let's go to storing our data to some sort of CSV file. So we need to import the CSV module here, import CSV like this, and okay, import CSV. So in order to write a file using Python, we need to use the following construct. So we can simply say with open and then specify 2 arguments here. The first is the file name, so let's call this results dot CSV, and the second one would be called this would be W letter, which stands for which means that we want to open the file stream to write files. In case if we want to read the file, we'll use this R. If we want to append text to existing data, we'll use the A here. So A stands for append. But in our case, we want just simply to write the file stream S. And now we need to create a variable for the file stream itself, and let's call this variable CSV file here. So the next thing to consider is to create what is known as the writer, and in order to do this, we need to say csv.dictWriter, and dictionary writer is an element, is a method that allows us to use this sort of data type, so the list of dictionaries, to be written to the CSV file. So in order to do that, we need to use this dictionary writer. Dictionary writer takes two arguments. The very first one is the file stream itself, so we specify the CSV file, the first argument. The second argument should contain the list, the type of Python list representing the column names. So we'll use results, the very first element. It doesn't matter which one exactly, but just we have to reference one of the dictionaries within the results, and simply say keys here. Remember at the beginning of this video I've shown you what exactly this sort of method called, what kind of output this method called produces. So now if we want to write the column names, we need to invoke the function that is called writer dot write header, like this. So okay, right here. Okay, let's just try to run this. Okay, and now we need to loop over the results. So I say for, let's call this row, for row in results, and remember that results is the type of Python list. So here we can simply say writer dot write row and specify the row that we're supposed to write to the file. So this kind of way, like this. Okay, writer is just misspelled here, little typo here, writer. Okay, so we've just written the CSV file, and just to show you that I didn't trick you guys and we did really write that CSV file, let me just duplicate this window, and here I'll import my little hack library that allows us to reference the file system in the cloud, basically. So I say hack alas, just to see that the results.csv file is available. Now I will just quickly show you the what is in there in that file. So if I just simply say cat results.csv, in this case we'll see our particular table. So if I just quickly copy this and store it to some sort of local file on my system, and okay, it already opens the LibreOffice, but that's pretty fine basically. So let's go with start, no, discard this. You sure? Yes, I'm sure. Okay. Okay. Well, I probably should have first put the data in, but it doesn't matter. Okay. So, well, just hold on a sec. I just want to do this a little bit different way now. So first, I just paste this in and save, and now open this stuff to make sure that separators are set up correctly. So don't worry, not tabs, only the commas. Okay, just okay. So here we have our table of the data that has been just scraped from quotes to scrape.com. Okay guys, so this is it regarding this little tutorial. I hope you learned something interesting, well, some sort of Python basics and web scraping basics. Please feel free to leave your commentaries. Oh my god, I just closed my video window here. So feel free to leave your commentaries below this video. I would be happy to answer them and interact with you guys regarding was this particular content interesting or not. So this is it for this video, and until next time, and take care.